Looking through the latest reports from Nepal, there's this one image that just keeps sticking with me. It's thousands of young Nepalese, some actually still in their school uniforms, right out there confronting government forces. The scale of it. It's pretty intense. Welcome, everyone, to the Nepali Diaspora Network podcast. We're your source for news, views, and insights for Nepalese all around the world. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really significant. The Gen Z protests that have taken hold in Nepal. It's become, well, the deadliest youth-led movement since 2006, which is quite something. Our aim here is really to unpack the key details from the latest news to help you, our listener, get a clearer understanding of what's happening in this critical moment for Nepal.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is that this isn't just some, fleeting reaction, not just a momentary flare-up. It feels much more like a deep expression of frustrations that have been building for a long time. When you look back, this moment really does stand out. It highlights just how strongly this generation is demanding to be heard.
That's a really important frame.
Yeah.
So, okay, if we're talking to these built-up frustrations, what was the actual spark? The thing that finally lit the fuse?
Well, the immediate trigger, the catalyst, seems to have been the government's decision to ban, I think it was over 24 social media platforms, big ones like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The official line was about combating misuse online, hate speech, fraud, that kind of thing. They said the platforms hadn't registered locally, but if you connect the dots, it's pretty clear that many people, especially young Nepalese, saw it very differently.
Okay.
They saw it less as regulation and more as, an attempt to control information and silence dissent.
Okay.
I mean, for young people there, these platforms aren't just for fun, they're vital. For news, for running businesses sometimes, for political discussion.
Right. So cutting that off, it would feel like a direct hit to their freedom, their voice, their ability to even organize.
Exactly. It wasn't really about the ban. In the end, that was just the flashpoint. It tapped into these much deeper systemic problems that have been simmering for ages.
Like what specifically? What are those deeper issues?
Oh, the usual suspects, unfortunately. Pervasive corruption, really ineffective governance, abuses of power. And then there are the public services like health and education, just absolutely woeful systems that people feel have failed them time and again. And something that really poured fuel on the fire, especially online, was this whole #NepoKid trend that went viral.
Ah, yes, I saw that.
Right. It basically exposed the, very lavish lifestyles of the children of political elites and the contrast with ordinary Nepalese, many working abroad just to get by. It was incredibly stark.
Yeah. That kind of inequality exposed so publicly.
Exactly. It highlighted the sense of impunity, this massive wealth gap, and that really fed the anger. As one protest organizer actually put it, the ban was the catalyst, sure, but the real reason they took to the streets was institutionalized corruption.
It's kind of a classic pattern, isn't it? The official reason often masks these much bigger grievances.
It really does. So the ban was the matchstick. How quickly did things ignite after that? What did the initial protests actually look like on the ground?
Incredibly fast, really dramatic. On Monday, September 8th, you had thousands of young people, many, like you said, still in school uniforms, gathering in the big cities. The main focus was Kathmandu, where a huge crowd marched towards the federal parliament building. Just seeing that level of mobilization from such a young group, it was striking straight away.
And the government's reaction, how did they handle thousands marching on parliament?
Well, sadly, the response was immediate and very forceful. Security forces used tear gas, water cannons, and then, tragically, live ammunition. This was apparently after some protesters managed to break through the barricades. Live rounds against young protesters.
Yes. And that use of force was widely condemned pretty much immediately as being unnecessary or disproportionate. It really raises serious questions about the response protocols and the human cost. Well, it's just devastating.
Devastating is the right word. Can you give us a sense of that toll, the numbers, the impact?
The official figures from the Ministry of Health are just heartbreaking. 19 confirmed deaths across the country. 17 of those were in Kathmandu alone, 2 more in Itahari.
19 young lives.
Yeah. And on top of that, over 400 injured, many of them critically, with bullet wounds, often to the head and chest. You can imagine the scene at the hospitals. They were completely overwhelmed. The Central Blood Transfusion Service reported this huge surge in demand, needing over 200 pints of blood just that one evening. And the images, anguished parents rushing to trauma centers, desperately looking for their children. It just became this gut-wrenching symbol of the crisis.
Just awful to even picture.
Absolutely. And the political fallout was immediate, too. The Home Minister, Ramesh Lekhak, resigned that same Monday evening. He cited moral grounds, taking responsibility for the deaths and injuries. That alone shows the kind of pressure these protests generated right away.
That level of tragedy, especially among young people, is shocking. But did the protests stop after that crackdown? Or did people keep coming out?
Remarkably, no. Despite everything, despite the government imposing curfews to try and clamp down, the protests actually continued, quite forcefully, on Tuesday, September 9th. Young people were defying the curfews, gathering spontaneously in different parts of Kathmandu Valley, places like Bhubaneswar, Kalanki, Chapagan, often without any clear leaders or even banners, just gathering.
Spontaneously. And was the focus still the same, or did it shift?
It shifted, actually. The anger seemed to turn directly towards symbols of power, the establishment. They started targeting specific individuals and institutions.
Really, like who or what?
Yeah, we saw reports of protesters attacking the residences of government ministers, former prime ministers, even the central bank governor right there in Kathmandu Valley. Homes belonging to figures like the communications minister Prithvi Subagurung, deputy PM Bishnu Padel. Even the home minister who had just resigned, Ramesh Latak, his place was targeted too. Also, the Nepal Rashtra Bank governor, Biswal Paudel. And there were reports of stones thrown at Pushpa Kamal Dahal's residence, the Maoist center chair. They even went near former PM Sher Bahadur Duba's house. It felt like a very clear rejection of the entire political class.
Wow. That's a significant escalation. Was this kind of defiance just in the capital, or did it spread?
Oh, it definitely spread. It wasn't just Kathmandu. That underlines how widespread the frustration really is. There were large demonstrations in Haituda and Manahari Bazaar in Makwanpur district. Protesters there blocked the main east-west highway with burning tires. And in Sarlahi and Malangwa, political party offices, Nepali Congress, CPN, UML, were actually set on fire.
Torched. Goodness.
Yeah. Then in Koshi province, demonstrators gathered at Tivkota Chowk, more burning tires. And way out in the far west province, the chief minister's office itself was vandalized. So you see this pattern, targeting political symbols, party offices, government buildings right across the country. It suggests a real breakdown of trust.
A breakdown of trust. That seems undeniable. What about more political fallout? Did anyone else resign after the Home Minister?
Yes, the political consequences kept rolling. On Tuesday, the Agriculture Minister, Ramnath Adhikari, also resigned. He explicitly condemned the government's response as authoritarian. He warned the country was sliding away from democracy and said he couldn't stay in power without answers for the violence against, a generation the government should be working with.
Another minister gone. Any reaction from the opposition?
Absolutely. Gagan Thapa, a prominent opposition leader from the Nepali Congress, was very vocal. He publicly called for Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to take moral responsibility for the 19 deaths and resign immediately. He basically said the Nepali Congress couldn't just stand by and watch this happen, couldn't be a partner to it. So the political pressure was definitely mounting. And amidst all this, the government doubled down on trying to regain control with those widespread curfews we mentioned across Kathmandu Valley, Kavarpalanchok, Bharatnagar, Burgunj. The scale of those curfews shows just how serious the government viewed the unrest.
It certainly paints a picture of a nation in crisis, both on the streets and politically. With such a severe response and tragic outcomes, how did the rest of the world react?
Well, the international community definitely sat up and took notice. There was quite a rare joint statement issued by 9 embassies based in Nepal. We're talking Australia, Finland, France, Japan, South Korea, the UK, Norway, Germany, and the US.
9 embassies. That feels significant.
It is. Collective diplomatic statements like that aren't an everyday occurrence. It signals pretty deep concern. They express sadness over the violence, offered condolences, and really focused on human rights.
What was their core message on rights?
They were very clear in reaffirming their strong support for the universal rights to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. They urged everyone involved, all sides, to exercise maximum restraint, avoid making things worse, and make sure those fundamental rights were protected.
Yeah, what about human rights groups within Nepal or internationally?
They were also quick to respond. The National Human Rights Commission in Nepal voiced serious concern over the excessive force and demanded a credible, impartial investigation. Similarly, the UN Human Rights Office called for a prompt and transparent investigation into the killings. They appealed directly to the authorities to respect those rights, peaceful assembly, freedom of expression. And, as the writer Kagendra Sangravula pointed out, these events really kind of stripped away any facade, exposing the government's true nature, perhaps. His warning was pretty stark. Trying to suppress dissent like this will only make the voices louder in the long run.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't really silence people completely in today's world, can you? Especially not a whole generation.
Not easily, no. Global scrutiny is intense.
This whole situation, it's just incredibly serious. It really does feel like a kind of generational reckoning in Nepal. You have the youth demanding basic things, dignity, accountability, justice against corruption that's just been allowed to fester. And as you said, the world is watching very closely now as Nepal seems to be balancing on this edge between, well, democratic accountability on one side and potential authoritarian repression on the other.
It really leaves you with a profound question, doesn't it? Thinking about those images. The bloodied shirts of young protesters, the faces of parents outside the hospitals. What kind of lasting scar, what enduring legacy will that leave on Nepal's national consciousness? And maybe more importantly for the future, how will these protests actually reshape governance? And how will it change the way young Nepalese engage with politics moving forward? It feels like something fundamental might be shifting.
Those are definitely the crucial questions now. Heavy thoughts to end on. For everyone listening, if you want to explore these developments further, you can find the full Nepali Diaspora Digest newsletter, all the latest updates, and other useful resources for the diaspora over at nepalidiaspora.net. Thank you so much for joining us for this important deep dive today.